Today's video, we're tracking down certificates used by load balancers in AWS. Hey there, this is Tom with Tom's Tech Show, and today we're looking at load balancers and their certificates. Sometimes, depending on how you have your certificates set up, if you like manually put them, you purchase them from DigiCert or some other provider, and you update them um, kind of manually and post them manually into AWS. At some point, AWS knows when those certificates are going to expire. And they may send you an email saying, the certificate's expiring. You might want to, fix it. Or or your validation might be email and it's having trouble sending email. For some reason, you need to know where that certificate is applied in your set of load balancers. So it's not just as easy as go give me, what certificates are in the load balancers. There's a couple different steps that we have to cycle through. But with PowerShell, as many of my videos about AWS are dealing with PowerShell, we can do it. Okay, this is one of my regular scripts. I have the top part here. It's just I keep all of my information in a MySQL database, and that's where I get my access key and my secret key in order to connect to AWS. But the next thing we need to know after we connect to AWS basically are the regions that we're going to use. So I create a region list, just a variable that has a couple of regions that I want. And you'll get the certificate will have this ARN and then whether it's in US West 2, what an account name and the certificate and a big GUID. So you paste that in there and then as it runs through this, so this would be the certificate that you're looking for, where it is posted. And since this is a US West certificate in my region list, I only need US West to be listed. Okay, so we come down here, we get from our region list, I have this is kind of copied from another script that allows multiple regions. So if you had different certificates that were in different regions, you could create a certificate list and do it that way. But here we just set our region and give it a header kind of on the page and in the readout so that we see region here. So the first thing we're going to do is get the Elastic Load Balancer. These are version 2s, so we start with version 2. And we do get ELB2 load balancer, and this gets us all of our load balancers into a variable. So we now have a list. Then we're going to do a for each. We're going to cycle through all of those load balancers and check if our certificate we're testing for is attached to that load balancer. But first, we have to take our load balancer and peel off the listener, find out what listener is in that load balancer. So load balancers, how load balancers of course work. There's the endpoint load balancer, and then inside that there is a listener for what port. You can have multiple listeners. This script is only for a single load balancer with a single listener, but you could cycle through add another for each loop in here and cycle through all of the listeners. Okay, so we get our listener because that's where actually the certificate is attached. So I give it a flag false. Does this listener have the certificate that I want? So then for each, check in cert check. So my cert check is this up here. So if I had multiple certificates, I could do that there since I'm doing it for each. So for each certificate that we're going to check, we're going to go look at the listener, and under certificates, there's a value called certificate ARN, and that's what we're going to compare to. So we check our certificate that need to find with certificate ARN, and if that's true, it is there, then we set our flag equal to true. Then if our flag is equal to true, we output, we're going to write the load balancer name, the listener certificate, and set the background color to green, and if not, then we're just going to write it out. Okay, so this part covers the Elastic Load Balancer version 2s, but there is also the older kind of classic load balancers. So we're going to basically do this list again. So we're going to get our Elastic Load Balancer list, except this is get ELB load balancer, not up here ELB2 2 load balancers. So this is just the version 1s. And our check is a little bit different. The code for our check is a little bit different because the classic kind of elastic load balancers, they have their listening uh, ports and certificates and everything built into them. It's not a separate listening group. There's not a separate target group inside there. So it's all built into one. So we don't have to go grab the, like here when we grab the listener, it's built into it. So we don't need to go off and do that. So we're going to cycle through our list for each elastic load balancer in our list that we're trying to find. Of course, we set the flag to false every time we go through. Then all we have is check for each check in our cert check for every cert that we're going to try. So the check value is going to equal the elastic load balancer, and inside the load balancer is the listener description, and then the first value. If there are more than one value, if there's more than one, then you could cycle through those, but most of mine have only one. So the listener descriptions, item 0, the first item, then the listener, and then the SSL certificate ID. Instead of certificate ARN, they changed it from ID, they went to this ARN, they started adding ARN, but since this is an older one, they're still using ID. So if that is true, then we're going to set our flag equal to true, and we're going to do our output. If flag equals true, then write out the value, color it green, and then if not, color it regular white text on black. And then at the end, we're just going to write done on the output. So the output, a highly redacted version of that output is this. So all of this, so here's some here that's output with it. There's another one here, here, here. So there's a few output that have that certificate that I was testing for connected. So this tells me where exactly to go to find. It'll have the name of the load balancer and everything. So I'll know exactly where to go in Amazon, and I can copy and paste that into the list and then filter it down just to the names that I want in the load balancer list, and be able to either change the certificate or know if I don't update the certificate, what services are going to fail, because SSL will be broken if the certificate fails. So if it's some, development code or something that's running and it's going to take a little while to get the certificate done and in place, then it might be okay to let it expire and then and be able to still work on it. But if you know that, oh, these are production loads, this is production stuff that we need to fix, then you can put higher priority on it because you know exactly what load balancers and everything are attached to those certificates. All right, well, that's just some quick and simple code just to use PowerShell to get information out of AWS. If you like this video, then of course share and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, I get great comments on all of my videos. Just thank everybody for interacting. It's been a great 500 subscribers so far. So we're continuing on, and we're at 550 or something. I forget. YouTube is screwy. 560 now. Okay. So thanks everybody for subscribing, and hopefully this information is handy and helpful to you. That's the reason for it. I have information in my head and information that I work on, and I put that out whenever I find something that I think is really cool and relevant. All right. So thanks for watching this, and take care.